God is not asking you to be anything other than what he's made you, as long as you submit to how he has made you, to how you relate to other people who he has made different than you. While God is not calling any of us to give up how he made us, he is not expecting us to use how he made us to relate inappropriately to people he has made different than us. There's a woman coming to the well. We're told in verse 5, and so he came to the city of Samaria called Sychar, near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph, and Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, being wearied from his journey, was sitting by the well. It was about the 6th hour. There came a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." Notice a lot of attention is given to this well. We're not just told he stopped by a well. The well is described. This is Jacob's well that he gave to his son Joseph, located in the vicinity of Sychar, which was the city of Samaria. He wants us to know that this is not an ordinary well. This is a Jacob given to his son well. Why would that be important for the author of John the apostle, to tell us that? Well, in a moment you'll see the Jews didn't get along with the Samaritans, and the Samaritans didn't get along with the Jews, but they both loved Jacob. For Jacob was the father of the Jews and the Samaritans. Of course, of the Jews, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but also of the Samaritans, because the Samaritans accepted the first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis is the first book of the Bible. Jacob is in the first book of the Bible. Since they accepted the first book of the Bible, they accepted Jacob. So in order to make this thing work, Jesus met her on common ground. He met her at a place of agreement. And the place of agreement was scriptural related, because they were both related to Jacob. The Jews didn't like the Samaritans didn't like the Jews, but they both loved them some Jacob. And so he met her at a place that they could both agree on. He meets her there, and we find out that he wants a drink of water from her cup. You got to be kidding me. You're going to put your Jewish lips to this woman's Samaritan cup? Now we know it's a shocker, because look at verse 9. Verse 9 tells us, "Therefore the Samaritan woman said to him, 'How is it that you, being a Jew, ask me for a drink, since I am a Samaritan woman? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans.'" Now, before I go on, I want to call your attention to verse 8. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food, probably chicken, because they were all preachers. So they've gone into the city to buy food, and he just drops that in and then goes back to the story, because that's going to become a critical part of the story in just a moment, that they're in town buying food. The Samaritan woman looks at Jesus after Jesus is offering to drink from her cup, and she is shocked, stupefied, mesmerized. She can't figure out, you being a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan, for a drink of water? Why is this important? Question number 1, how did she know he was a Jew? He never identifies himself as a Jew. He never says that he's a Jew. So evidently, he's obviously a Jew. Just by looking at him, seeing his dress, hearing his accent, because all she does is see him and hear him, he's obviously Jewish. So recognizing he's a Jew, she's shocked. In other words, Jesus didn't stop being who he was to reach somebody else. He didn't go to Samaria and find out how to speak Samaritan and then find out how they dress so I can dress like them in order to hide who he was. He was visibly, verbally a Jew, and it was evident. So he didn't give up his own creation to talk to a different kind of creation. he was able to maintain his racial and cultural identity. But even though he maintained his racial and cultural identity, he didn't let it get in the way of doing what his father had called him to do. And that is to reach across the railroad tracks to somebody who was different than him, who the rest of his culture would not reach out to. For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. While God is not calling any of us to give up how he made us, he is not expecting us to use how he made us to relate inappropriately to people he has made different than us. God is not asking you to be anything other than what he's made you, as long as you submit to how he has made you, to how you relate to other people who he has made different than you. It is technically incorrect, to call yourself a black Christian or a white Christian or a Hispanic Christian, because then you make your color or your culture an adjective. It's the job of an adjective to modify a noun. So if you put Christianity in the noun position and your color or culture in the adjectival position, you have to keep shaping the noun so that it looks like the adjective that describes it. So if your color or culture stays in the adjectival position, you got to keep shaping Christianity to look black or to look white or to look red or to look yellow, because that's the adjectival description you've given it. Your Christianity must always be in the adjectival position. Your color and culture must always be in the noun position, so that if anything must be adjusted, it is the noun of your humanity and not the adjective of your faith. You and I are to define our humanity in terms of our faith, not our faith in terms of our humanity. Jesus stayed who he was, but he operated from heaven's point of view. He didn't give up being a Jew to reach her. God is not asking you to give up who you are to touch somebody else. But don't let the fact that all them other folk in your race won't drink from a cup to keep you from drinking from a cup. Don't be so committed to your own race that you operate outside of the Christian faith. While staying true to what God has made you. And so Jesus Christ says, can I have a drink of your water? The woman is overwhelmed, because he's doing something no Jew does. He's doing something that his people don't do. And this has been going on since 722 BC. So this has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so she is awed by the fact that he's going to put his Jewish lips to my Samaritan cup. Now, please notice something. He hadn't given her any Bible yet. He hadn't preached to her yet. He hadn't witnessed to her yet. He hadn't given her theology yet. She doesn't even know who he is. All she knows is he's a nice man. That's all she knows. See, a lot of folk want to tell folk about Jesus who are not willing to drink out of the cup. I want to get your soul to heaven. I just don't want to deal with you on earth. I'll witness to you, but I won't eat with you. I'll witness to you, but I won't drink with you. I'll talk about God. Jesus hasn't even talked about who he is yet, but he demonstrated by his touch and by his sociology gave validity to the theology that was to come. And a lot of folk have rejected God because how can I believe in a God who's not social enough for you to sit down and eat and drink and fellowship with me because I'm a Samaritan, because I'm of a different history and background and race and culture. So the woman is just shocked. Just because he's going to put his Jewish lips to her Samaritan cup. He's going to do what his own race won't, because it was the right thing to do. So, Jesus tells her, verse 10, if you knew the gift of God and who it was who you were talking to, who said, give me to drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. A little transition to the spiritual. He'd have given you living water. Everyone who drinks your water, verse 13, is going to thirst again. But whoever drinks the water that I will give him shall never thirst, but the water that I give him will become a well springing up to eternal life. The woman says, I want that water. I don't have to come out here at 12 o'clock every day and do this well thing if you're going to do that. What is this living water? I don't know where you're going with it. What is this? Well, he says to her, go call your husband. Go call your husband. She says, I don't have a husband. Jesus said, you got that right, verse 17. You have correctly said, because you've had 5 husbands and the one you have now is Mr. Jones, me and Mr. Jones. The one you have now is not your husband. This you have truly said. He confronts her with her sinfulness. She says, sir, verse 19, I perceive you are a prophet. I guess so. He's all up in your stuff like that. He knows about your life, just having met you. I perceive you are a prophet. She says, our fathers worshipped in this mountain, verse 20, and you people. A racial slur if I ever heard one, you people. Say that in Jerusalem is the place where you ought to worship. Jesus says, woman, believe me, the hour is coming, and now neither in this mountain nor Jerusalem shall you worship the Father. You worship that which you know not. We worship what we know, for salvation is of the Jews. An hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For such people the Father seeks to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. Notice something. When race comes up earlier, he was a Jew, she was a Samaritan, he asked to drink from her cup. Jesus makes no comment, none at all. Just the reality. You're Jew, I'm Samaritan, no comment. But now she brings up race in relationship to Jesus' Father, where we worship. Our fathers worship in this mountain. Behind her is Mount Gerizim. Mount Gerizim is where the Samaritan temple was located, and that's where we go to church. We go to church at Mount Gerizim. You people, y'all go to church over there. Y'all go to church over there. You go to church in Jerusalem. Watch this. We were raised different. Because she says, our father. Our fathers. That's how you were raised. Jesus, let me explain this. My daddy told me that when you want to get close to God, you go back here to Gerizim. And my daddy told me that because my granddaddy told my daddy, who told me that this is God's way. And the only reason my granddaddy told my daddy, who told me, is because my great-granddaddy told my granddaddy, who told my daddy, who told me. That this is how we live, this is how we worship, this is our view of God. This thing has been passed down from my fathers. It's part of my history, it's part of my heritage, it's part of my background. It's how I was raised. And you people, the only reason you do what you do is because your daddy told you, because your granddaddy told your daddy who told you, and your great-granddaddy told your granddaddy who told your daddy who told you. We got 2 different histories. We got 2 different backgrounds. We were raised on different sides of the track, Jesus. We're different. When she brought up race the first time, Jesus had nothing to say. But when she brought his daddy into it, he gives her a whole lecture. We can have our racial differences, lady, But when you bring my Father into the discussion, I got to clarify. And boy, does he clarify, you worship what you know not. Your daddy was wrong, your granddaddy was wrong, your great-granddaddy was wrong, and your great-great-granddaddy was wrong. All your people are wrong. They're all wrong. Because they're not worshiping correctly, they're not worshiping the true God. You're following a tradition passed down by your parents, passed down by your race, and all of them are wrong when you bring my Father into the equation. Because theology must rule anthropology and sociology and all the other ologies. You're wrong. Because when you bring my Father into it, it has to have two qualifications, spirit and truth. It's got to be the right heart, spirit. It's got to emanate from the right motivation. And truth, it must operate on an objective standard.